To my final presentation. I made banana spice cookies as well. Obviously, this is not banana spice cookies, but I thought the slides were really cute. So, talking about the cookie, this cookie was a recipe dated from 1962. It was also written by Betty Crocker, so the intended audience would be American individuals. The main ingredient is bananas, which is a fruit that is available around all year now. But in that time, it was only available from March through June. Shortening is a type of dairy that is essentially fat and oil that is stored at room temperature. So, given that any kind of fat is relatively available throughout the year, um, finding shortening was not hard to get. This food and the cookbook was made so that anyone would make it and also wouldn't have to spend so much time on it. So it was really made for all people, all civilians. Um, in addition, we'll talk about some of the ingredients that are used, but in addition, eggs are also used. And so, according to the USDA, in the 1960s, there was increased worries about poultry items and in general meat items. So, because of that, because they were concerned about the health of individuals, or at least American individuals. So, there was several laws that were put into place, and by 1970, the Egg Products Inspection Act was passed. So, going into detail about my the process, the stuff I used was eggs, chocolate, which I'll talk about a little later, sugar, bananas, baking powder and soda, some cloves, and then some cinnamon, and I think that was it, and then the shortening and the flour that you see there. And so what it said, it was really simple. They said mix up the wets and the dries and then let it cool for an hour. Since I wanted to be kind of authentic as possible, I didn't use any kind of electric tools. So mixing the shortening was kind of hard, I will not lie. Because it just didn't look right. Or it took a lot to mix in order to have everything kind of be concise. So looking at who would eat this, like I mentioned, it's Betty Crocker's new good and easy cookbook. So it's made for it to be easy, so anyone can make it. And it was listed as a dessert or a snack. I'd imagine that you could probably eat these cookies with a drink or something like coffee or something like that. So going up to the results, these are the cookies on my right here. They were great. I made them for Christmas. I made them for Thanksgiving, particularly for my family, and they also liked it. Some of the changes that I did were purposeful and also accidental. The first one was I left it in the fridge for 24 hours. The recipe calls for it to be put in for an hour, but I forgot. So it was in for a day, which really doesn't really make too much of a difference. I also substituted nuts for chocolate, and this is just a personal preference. My family doesn't really like nuts, so I just decided to do that. And then because it was, given the holiday, a lot of things were being cooked at the same time, so we kind of decided to do the average temperature to be 350. So it took 30 minutes. It took 20 minutes to for the cookies to bake. If I were to do anything different in addition, I also added other seasonings. I think the main seasoning that they called for was cloves, but I decided to add vanilla and cinnamon just because I thought that was going to add to it, and it did. It was great. So here are my sources that are used. Going back to here, if I were to change anything, I would probably cook it a little longer. Not a little longer, but I would probably cook it at the right temperature. I think that it was a good cookie, but comparing it to modern cookies, it doesn't taste the same. As in, like, it feels more of a biscuit rather than an actual cookie itself. So it's kind of hard to adjust to. Like, if someone were like, oh, hey, here's some cookie or here's some biscuit, I'd be like, oh, that's great. But I would not look at this and be like, that's a cookie, if that kind of makes sense, because it doesn't look like it. But that might have been what the cookies looked like then, and it just has changed throughout time. So, But yeah, overall, really good. I'll make it again. I also think that's something I kind of thought was interesting. I like to bake bread a lot, so it was interesting finding how similar the ingredients are. I think the only difference is just the bread. I mean, the flour that's used. You just use a little bit more flour and maybe add another egg. But apart from that, this is so easy to make it into a bread, and it'd be the same exact thing. But yeah, and here are my sources that I use. I also listed the photo credits as well. And then I also listed when I talked about eggs here. Thank you so much for watching.